Abducted, the terrifying encounter of Eunice and Stanley with alien entities. Stanley and Eunice walked hand in hand through the darkened woods, their flashlight beams cutting through the eerie darkness. They were lost, having wandered off the beaten path during their evening stroll, and now they were hopelessly disoriented. As they stumbled over roots and brush, they heard a strange noise, a rustling in the bushes, followed by a low growl. Stanley's heart pounded in his chest as he tightened his grip on Eunice's hand, and they continued on. The sound grew louder, closer, until finally they found themselves face to face with a strange being. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, with bulbous white eyes and dark, glistening skin. For a moment, they stood frozen in terror, unable to move or speak. But then the creature lunged forward, and they turned and ran. Behind them, they could hear it screeching and shrieking, the sound echoing through the woods. They stumbled blindly through the darkness, their only thought to escape the creature's grasp. But no matter how fast they ran, it seemed to be right behind them, its grasping claws nearly catching them several times. Finally, as they reached the edge of the forest, Stanley tripped and fell. Eunice stopped to help him up, but it was too late. The creature had caught up with them. It lunged forward with lightning speed, its razor-sharp claws slicing through the air. Eunice screamed as she felt the sharp sting of the creature's claws, and then darkness overcame her. When she came to, Eunice was lying in a cold, sterile room. Beside her, Stanley lay motionless, his body twisted and mangled. She could feel the stinging pain of wounds all over her body, but she didn't dare move. As she lay there, confused and terrified, the door of the room opened and several strange beings entered. They resembled the creature that had chased her and Stanley, with their bulbous white eyes and dark, glistening skin. One of them approached her, speaking in a strange, hissing language. Eunice couldn't understand a word of it, but she was filled with a sense of dread. Suddenly, one of the beings reached out and touched her forehead. Eunice felt a surge of pain explode through her mind, and then everything went black. When she came to, she was in another room, surrounded by screens and machines. The same strange beings were there, but now they were speaking in a language she could understand. "We have brought you here for a purpose," the leader of the group said. "Your planet is dying, and we need your help to save it." Eunice stared at them in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "What do you want from me?" The leader approached her, its beady eyes boring into hers. "We need your reproductive material," it said. "We need to create hybrids to save our species." Eunice recoiled in terror, realizing the horror of the situation she was in. "No," she whispered. "You can't do this to me." But the beings were relentless. They subjected her to unspeakable experiments and tortures, forcing her to produce the genetic materials they needed. She was trapped in that place for what seemed like years, her mind and body slowly deteriorating. Finally, one day, they informed her that the experiments were done. They had created a hybrid species, one that would be able to survive on both their planet and hers. As they prepared to send her back to Earth, Eunice pleaded with them to let her go. But they were unmoved. They had no use for her anymore. They dumped her on a barren, remote stretch of land, miles from civilization. As Eunice groped her way through the wilderness, she realized that something had changed inside her. The experiments had unleashed a hidden power within her, and she could feel it pulsing through her veins. It was a destructive force, one that she could barely control. As she stumbled through the wilderness, her mind racing with terror and confusion, she heard a rustling in the bushes beside her. And then, without thinking, she unleashed the full force of her power. The shockwave rattled the surrounding forest, and Eunice looked on in horror as everything around her began to disintegrate. Trees and boulders crumbled to dust, and the ground began to shake. Finally, as the entire landscape began to crumble, Eunice realized in horror what the creatures had done to her. They had created a monster, a creature of unimaginable power and destruction that would stop at nothing to get revenge. And with that realization, Eunice unleashed a final, devastating blast of power, obliterating everything in her path. As the dust settled and the eerie silence surrounded her, she was left alone with her thoughts, a broken, tormented monster with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. Stanley and Eunice's story had ended in horror and destruction, and the world would never be the same again.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and tell us what you think in the comments. And of course, don't forget to subscribe.